Welcome back to The Conscious Resistance on Orion Talk Radio. My name is Derek Bros. If you're listening online and you got somewhere to go, you can take me with you. Use your fancy phone to go get the TuneIn app, search Orion Talk Radio. You can listen to my show, you can listen to Popeye and all the shows that are on throughout the week, and take us wherever you go. We're going to move the show right along now. I got my regular guest with me, John Goodvibes of the Intel Hub and the Alchemy of the Modern Renaissance. How you doing, man?
Pretty good, man. Glad to be back.
Yeah, let's get going into it. You've got some stories here with us. What's happening with WholeFoods?
Apparently they have put out an announcement on their blog saying that in the next few years they're putting out word to all of their suppliers and giving them, I think it was 5 years. They have a 5-year deadline to be able to let them know what's in their foods as far as GMOs and all that is concerned. And basically, they're going to be labeling everything in their store voluntarily from now on. And so this probably is a result of the pressure that they have got, from people like you that may have allegedly, put your own labels on some things or something,
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of consumer pressure. That's what I was going to ask you, man. Did they state exactly what this is a result of? Did they say anything, or they just, they didn't put why?
You know how press releases go. It's always, they always try to make it look like it's their own decision, that they never really acknowledge that they're appealing to their consumers, which is what they're doing. And I don't have a problem with that, especially in this case. But I definitely think that that's the reason, regardless whether they say it or not.
I would say so, man. And this is what I prefer, and this is what we've talked about this before, where we're exploring GMO bans and things like that. And I've said since the beginning that I wouldn't fight a GMO ban if it started happening here locally, and on a local level, I probably would support that. But I'm always going to seek a solution that empowers the community and, shows the power of the market. And so, for example, like we're saying now, people decide either to do stuff like we've done, which is just as simple as going into Whole Foods and asking questions about GMO, questioning them. After a while, they get enough questions like that, they're going to be like, wow, I think our customers are concerned about this issue. Also, we've done info jams out there, just going out and holding signs, letting people know that specifically that Whole Foods does have GMO, because a lot of people who go there are more health conscious and they're under the impression that they're getting away from it. So we've done stuff like that, or the Label It Yourself campaign. And you do things like that, you put the pressure on them so that the businesses respond in the way that the market works, and they go along and decide to do it themselves. And by big companies doing that, or even the small guys, we can move past the situation of the GMOs without asking the state to do it.
Yeah, and this Whole Food, I think this guy released a book a while back or something that was kind of based on his economics research with people like Hayek and some of the Austrians. So he has some idea of what's going on. I don't totally support everything they've done in the past, but I think that them doing this will definitely send a message, and I think it sends a message to a lot of people who think that the only hope is government action, that no, it really isn't. All you have to do is appeal to these people who have this connection to this product, and, I think people will have a lot better luck that way. And then you don't have to worry about the issue with the FDA being completely controlled by Monsanto. And can you trust the label that they put on anything anyway? You know what I'm saying? That's my issue, really.
Yeah. Because when you're dealing with a business directly, you can, obviously Whole Foods has become a corporation. It's become bigger than what they started out as, but still, just the fact that they're taking the initiative, it does show a good sign. And when you're dealing with, this is why I promote farmers markets and things like that. You're going to a farmers market. I've traded seeds with different farmers at different markets around the city, and they know exactly, when this crop is going to going to be ripe, when it's going to do that. They know everything about it because they're dealing with it directly, and you don't get that kind of experience when you're just going to these big corporations. And so you can also deal with farmers more and more and tell the other farmers, the farmers market, hey, I'm looking for these non-GMO seeds, or at least can you tell me when I'm getting them? And the idea spreads that way. It spreads more naturally without, again, having to use the force of the government.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even like beyond the philosophical, problem that I would have with using government for much of anything, aside from taking away bad laws that already exist, is the fact of just the whole regulatory capture aspect. And who knows? Like, they could do something as crazy as just label it backwards. You know what I'm saying? Like, just label everything that. And that's a really, obnoxious kind of sounding thing, but it's totally possible. I mean, look at the pink slime that they put in, chicken nuggets, and, which I've eaten for, 90% of my life. You know what I'm saying? And all of this stuff that people trust the FDA for now, how are you going to go trust them for something like that when they're filled with Monsanto people, and that's where the main force that's driving GMOs anyway.
Exactly. And I was doing a segment earlier in the show talking about how food monopolies and just how they're taking over all around the world, and how it's not just that we're trying to break down the monopoly of Monsanto and the way it affects our lives in here in America, because it definitely does, and their influence is growing, but it's also affecting the farmers that are having to deal with these multinational companies that are selling them or buying their crops for pennies on the dollar and basically making them slaves. So it's a multi-pronged effort to try to remove the influence of these companies that are pushing GMOs. We're not even getting into the aspect of the health problems, just dealing strictly with their business practices.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there was a lot of resistance to this in places like India, and over the past decade, and activists like Vandana Shiva, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but she's an awesome international anti-GMO activist who I'm sure you're familiar with. Her and others in India have really railed against it because it was doing severe damage to their whole way of life. And this past year, I just saw something today where because of those efforts to get away from the GMO foods and grow stuff more organically, they are outgrowing what was expected. And most of the propaganda that goes along with the GMO foods in these third world countries is it'll produce more food for you, and these GMOs are going to save the world and all this. But actually now that India has turned back to organic farming, they have been able to produce more food.
Exactly. And so see the propaganda that comes out from people about organic gardening, organic use of doing gardening that way, that it's just that there's no point in it, it's a waste of time, it's expensive and all that stuff. It's propaganda, it's lies. I feel very strongly about that as a gardener and as somebody who deals with that, to see the information come out like that, where these companies try to persuade everybody into the idea that using these chemicals doesn't have any effect on the food itself, and again, the soil and the people who are doing them. You mentioned the fight in India. I was talking about this earlier, how because of the problems that we're facing on the international level dealing with GMOs, there's a huge suicide rate over there in India, and those are the kind of things that are a direct result of this GMO multinational corporate push.
Yeah, definitely. I remember hearing about that as well.
We're going to go to a break in just a minute, but there's a couple other things that I want us to explore, and one of them that we'll get into is about indigenous struggles again. It's becoming a regular theme, I think, in our conversations, man, just having to stay on what's happening with indigenous cultures around the world. And last week we were talking about Idle No More and their work with the tar sands blockade and what's going on down in Ecuador. So we've got more struggles of indigenous people happening in Panama. We're going to get into that right when we get back from the break and continue this conversation with John Good Vibes. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.